Okay, so when we're looking at the power up for today, the first one says solve the following equation for x. First, we're going to make it into a quadratic equation in standard form, and then we're going to solve by factoring. Okay, so notice that we have a binomial over here that is under a square root sign, and then we have a binomial on this side. So the first thing that we know that we're going to do if we're going to first convert it into a quadratic equation is we're going to square both sides so that we can free up this square root over here. And when you have something like this, the thing that we're not going to do is we're not going to do plus or minus the answer to this. We're just going to go ahead and square this and just take the positive version of it and then square this as well. So I'm going to go ahead and write this down over here. I've got the 9x minus 5, okay, equals x plus 1. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to square it because that's going to get rid of the square root. And then I'm going to take this and square it. And so I'm going to end up with 9x minus 5 equals x plus 1 squared. Now, what I know, and I've been trying to convince you guys to remember over and over again, is that a plus b squared is the same as a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Now you can, if you want to, you can take the x plus 1 and you can say x plus 1 times x plus 1, because that's what it is. It's x plus 1 squared is this whole thing squared. And you could do that and FOIL it out, and you'd get the same thing. And you can always do that, but what we're going to do instead is we're going to go ahead and use this right here, okay? So we're going to keep the 9x minus 5, and we're going to set that equal to x squared plus 2 times x times 1, which will be 2x, okay, plus b squared. So 1 squared is 1. Okay, so now what we've got to do is we've got to get everything onto one side of the equation. We're going to take all of this and put it onto that side of the equation so that one side of the equation can be this and the other side can be 0. So in order to do that, I'm going to add 5 to both sides. So this is going to be plus 5 down here. And I'm going to end up with 9x is equal to x squared plus 2x plus 6. And then looks like I'm going to subtract 9x from both sides, minus 9x. And I'm going to end up with 0 equals x squared minus 7x plus 6. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to actually, since 0 equals this, I'm going to put this equals 0 so that we can see it in the form that we normally know it as. And now we've got our quadratic equation that we can solve. And this says solve it by factoring. Let's go ahead. Let's go for it. Okay? Solve it by factoring means I open two sets of parentheses. I keep the equals 0 there. This is going to be x. This is going to be x because there's no leading coefficient. And then since this is minus but this is plus, this minus means that there needs to be at least one thing that's minus, but since this is plus, both of them need to be minus. So that's a minus and that's a minus. So what two numbers add to negative 7 and multiply to positive 6, okay? So for 6, you've got plus or minus 1 times plus or minus 6, or plus or minus 2 times plus or minus 3. I think we've got to go with the 1 times 6 is 6 because 1 plus 6 is 7. So what we're going to do is we're going to say that they're both negatives, okay? So I've got negative 1 plus negative 6 is negative 7. Negative 1 times negative 6 is positive 6. So I've got my answer. X minus 1 times x minus 6 equals 0. Okay? And that's when you know that these are going to separate out into two separate equations. X minus 1 equals 0 and x minus 6 equals 0. We add 1 to both sides in this case and get x equals 1. And add 6 to both sides in this case and get x equals 6. Okay? So we now have x equals 1 and x equals 6, and we usually notate that x equals 1 comma 6. And so that's our answer for number 1. Okay? So let's see if I can I want to see if I can clear this without No, that's not it. All right, select. I guess I'm just gonna have to erase everything. Okay, so I'm gonna erase everything. All right, and then we're gonna work on the next thing. Sorry about this. I know I've got another program that I can just clear all stuff that I've written with. I guess I'm gonna have to start using this for the videos, that one for the videos. Hey, anybody from Sketchbook that's out there, you know, it'd be great if you could add this feature where you let us just clear all of the stuff that we wrote. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. All right, so that's about as nice and neat as I'm going to get it for now. All right, so now, what number must be added to both sides of the equation in order to complete the square? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and write that out. X squared plus 18x is equal to 63. Now remember, solving by completing the square is you want to get a perfect square trinomial over on this side, right over here. You want it to get a perfect square trinomial. And this is the thing that we use to know that we have a perfect square trinomial. A perfect square trinomial means the trinomial you get when you square a binomial, right? So since I see that this is x squared plus 18x, I want to look at this 18x and I want to compare it to what I have over here. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to end up dividing that 18 by 2, okay? And that's going to tell us what our b is. And then we're going to square the b. So 18 divided by 2 is 9, and 9 times 2 is 81. So what we want is we want this to say x squared plus 18x plus 81 equals some number, right? Because that means that this is going to end up being x plus 9 equals that number, okay? So we are going to add, oops, we are going to add 81 to both sides, and that is what we're going to do, okay? The answer to this is you add 81 to both sides in order to complete the square. Okay, great. So the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to solve the next thing. We're going to solve the systems of equations. Okay, so solving a system of equations. Okay, let's go ahead and erase some more of this stuff. Okay, so my system of equations is I've got 6x plus 3y equals 27, and I've got 4x minus 5y equals negative 17. Now, what I'm going to do in order to do this, one way to do this would be, as a matter of fact, this is maybe this is the way I want to do this. If I divide everything on this side by, everything in this one by 3, I can get somewhere with my y here. So let's just do it that way. Let's just do that. So I'm going to take this guy right here, and I'm going to bring it over here, and I'm going to do 6x plus 3y equals 27, and I'm going to get some kind of y that's in slope-intercept form. Why am I going to do that? Because what I want to do is I want to take one of these, it doesn't matter which equation, and make it so that there are only x's in it instead of y's and x's. So one way that we can do this is we can put this in slope-intercept form. So I'm going to divide this by 3, divide this by 3, divide this by 3, and I'm going to end up with 2x plus y equals 9, right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides, and that's going to give me y equals negative 2x plus 9. Now, why did I do that? Because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this equation and I'm going to say 4x minus 5. Now, y equals negative 2x plus 9. So I'm going to put negative 2x plus 9 equals negative 17. Why would I do that? Because I no longer have a y in this. I only have x's in this, right? And so now I just have a bunch of stuff I have to do. 4x minus, let's see, 5 times negative 2x is positive 10x, so plus 10x. And then negative 5 times 9 is negative 45. Minus 45 equals negative 17. And I can combine these two and get 14x minus 45 equals negative 17. And then I'm going to get all my x's on one side and all my numbers on the other. I'm going to add 45 to both sides. And let's see, so 45 minus 17, carry that or whatever, borrow 8, 28. So I'm going to end up with this thing that says that 14x is equal to 28. Well, that's pretty cool, right? It's pretty cool because when I divide both sides by 14, I get that x equals 2. All right? Halfway done. Now I just need to plug the x equals 2 right into here, right? And I'm going to end up with, let's do something like, I don't know, let's do this one. Lightning yellow. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say 6 times 2 plus 3y equals 27, right? So 12 plus 3y equals 27. I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides, and I'm going to get that 3y equals 15, divide by 3, and y equals 5. So that's the other part of it right there. So my answer is going to be 2, 5.